Welcome, you're watching Head to Head. I'm Antonina Antosha with uatv. Kyiv Security Forum has just recently resumed its work in Ukraine's capital. The annual event usually focuses on the hottest issues that require discussion concerning the countries in the Black Sea region and in Europe. What topics were on the agenda of the Kyiv Security Forum this year, and what are the main messages that the international community received after the forum ended? To talk about this, we're joined in the studio today by Valeriy Kravchenko. He's an analyst of the Foreign Policy and International Security Department of the National Institute for Strategic Studies under the President of Ukraine. So hello and thank you for joining us.
Hello.
So tell us, please, which were the main topics discussed this year at Kyiv Security Forum?
The main topic is like the regeneration of the security climate in Eastern Europe, and it's a chance to speak about the situation and about the conflicts we have here in Ukraine, because Ukraine is one of the core states for security in Europe. And actually, a lot of talks were about the NATO destiny and the NATO transformation.
Ukraine in NATO.
And Ukraine in NATO, and of course Ukraine in NATO was the top topic, and our aspiration to NATO, our new status actually as a state, aspirant state in NATO. But it was the only talks, and unfortunately, it's like to make a position what is going on, but not to promote like ideas and new ideas how to deal with the problems we have.
And what kind of problems do we have currently that are the hot topics for Ukraine? Not only for Ukraine, but for Europe as well.
The hottest topic is the behavior of Russian Federation, behavior in the eastern Ukraine, in Syria, and it was a few panels about the Middle East and interconnections between the Middle East and the Ukrainian topic. And of course, the top topic was about the populism and rise of Euroscepticism in Europe, and it's
Any
something.
ideas on how to deal with that?
It's very hard. It's very hard because what I saw, it's the absence of the ideas, and even more people coming from the different states, experts of high level, former ministers, they came to Ukraine to speak, to talk, and even maybe to study, to study our experience and to give their perception of what is going on. But our representatives of the authority, they provide a lot of slogans about a lot of populism. Maybe the only person who spoke very concrete, it was Mr. Turchinov.
What did he say?
Actually, his speech was quite tough. He told a lot about the armies of Russian Federation located on the border of Ukraine, the armies which are ready to go to go to our territory, and their preparations are coming into the last phase for such a kind of threat. And of course, the countries in Europe and NATO and the European Union, they have to understand that here in Ukraine there is a frontier of their civilization, of the Western civilization, not only the war of Russia and Ukraine. It's a war of Russia and the West, and Europe and the United States.
All right, but well, at least United States are trying to tackle the problem. They're imposing sanctions, they're strengthening them, whereas Europe is kind of quiet on this matter. Has Donbass been discussed?
No. No.
Not at all.
Unfortunately, each year, every year, such kind of discussion about Donbass, elaborating some scenarios how to solve this problem, how to stop the Russian Federation aggression in Ukraine, and what kind of post-conflict regulations we could propose to Donbass. experts are not going to talk to this topic. Maybe it's not only for this forum, for security forum in Kiev, because there are a lot of forums like a Munich Security Conference or Sofia Security Conference, a lot of conferences around Europe, around the world, and there is no any kind of understanding how to react, because Russia is a big nuclear state. And going to the totalitarianism, and especially after the Putin speech on the 1st March with all this nuclear things he told about, missiles, and new generations of missiles. So it's a game of Russia to provide this fear across Europe, across the NATO, across the West. And it's something which are stopping the real scenarios how to deal with it. And the only topic we could speak about in sense of Crimea or in sense of Donbass, it's about the humanitarian rights, about the people and their rights, and IDPs, for example, internally displaced persons. So, and that's all. Only humanitarian level, not something which are really fruitful to decide this problem.
Well, still, the situation with human rights in Crimea, in the next Crimea and the occupied Donbass, is a disaster. Any suggestions that were voiced how to deal with that?
Still only constatations that it is a disaster. And if you are talking about the Crimea, for example, there is three declarations of General Assembly of the UN is talking about this situation in Crimea. No any kind of declaration, even not Security Council, but even for General Assembly of UN about Donbass. What is happening in Donbass, and we have to understand, is that Russia's talking that Crimea, okay, that's territory which belongs to Russia, as Russia thinking about this. So it's giving some law projection, Russian law projection on this territory. And we have to understand that there is no kind of law projection in DPR, so-called, and LPR. So it's terroristic organizations, terroristic structure, and the human rights in LPR and DPR even worse than in Crimea. But we are not talking about. And I would like to say about scenarios. For example, it was a speech of Miss Rose Hellmeyer. She is the Deputy Secretary General of NATO, and I just asked only one thing to her, that there is a kind of practice. If you don't see realistically the chance of Ukraine to join NATO, because the position of the 29 countries, member states of alliance, of course they have some fears about taking into the alliance the country which is having a hot war, unproclaimed hot war in Donbass. And maybe if you are still going to the NATO and having aspiration to join NATO, not only we, but Moldova, also Georgia, and all these countries unites with in Ukraine it's a hot conflict, and somewhere it's a frozen conflict in Transnistria, for example, or in Abkhazia and Southern Ossetia. So maybe it is a good idea to establish something like a small NATO, like it was Entente Cordiale and small Entente from of Yugoslavia.
So that was your suggestion. What was the answer?
That was my suggestion. And,
what was the answer?
And the answer was dramatically interesting. And she just said that, of course, for sure, there is no any kind of security gap in Europe here, in Eastern Europe, in Ukraine. And what we need is just to go to NATO. So it's not idealistic, it's realistic from her point that we can join NATO.
Yeah,
sorry,
but when? This is the key question. That could take decades.
Like just take this road and go. And what will be the result and what is the terms of these results, it doesn't matter. What is matter is just our road and our movement and our reforms, and which we need to implement to make a criteria for membership.
Personally, what do you think? What needs to be done to tackle the situation in occupied Donbass and in the next Crimea?
My perception as for Donbass is clear. We need not only like an international peacekeeping operation in Donbass, but we need more widely international provisional administration, which will have like a military part, police part, and also a public administration, civil administration. So that's a comprehensive approach how to decide this problem, and we need to force this approach and to give a chance to our partners in the West to see our clear position about what is happening there. Because, you know, if we'll make like a limited international peacekeeping operation in Donbass, that will be in favor of Russia, because they're saying that we have a civil war. And these peacekeeping operations and this military stuff will split the parties which are having a war. So Ukrainians and Ukrainians.
Ukrainians and Ukrainians, yes.
So we need to be honest and to speak that it's aggression, and we already have this law that's proclaiming that aggression. And actually, we need to give our perception. So international provisional administration, it's the unique chance of Ukraine to try to solve this problem. As for Crimea, I said, we need just to make a first step. Because,
which is?
Because even if you are talking about Donbass, very tough situation, okay, but we still have some kind of platform. It's a trilateral contact group in Minsk and Minsk agreement. If you are talking about the Crimea, there is nothing, absolutely nothing, any ground for negotiations, and we need some kind of platform to start such negotiations. We need to unite all our allies who have a deep will to promote these scenarios for Ukrainian Crimea. And for, of course, the first country which could be helpful to Ukraine in this sense is Turkey. It's Erdogan, and it was a meeting between Erdogan and Poroshenko. Just
any results on that event?
It was the talks about the peacekeeping operations, and
okay.
You know, very difficult situation about the Crimea, because Russia generally denying any kind of negotiations about the Crimea. So they are perceiving this situation that it's a closed issue, and that's all. And it's just blocking any kind of decision and negotiations and even discussion in Europe or in the United States about how to deal with Crimean issue.
Okay, well, thank you so much for coming and sharing this with us. That was quite interesting. That was Valeriy Kravchenko. He's an analyst of the Foreign Policy and International Security Department of the National Institute for Strategic Studies under the President of Ukraine. Thank you so much for watching. Stay tuned with UATV.